Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day number 333. I'm sorry, 393. 393. Sunday, April the 8th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for giving me the thumbs up on my previous videos, making all the great comments. I love the comment section and just enjoy all the interaction that goes on as we track the deep state coup day by day, watching the swamp monsters getting more and more trapped, and we're making progress. We are making good progress. Today we have a couple major breaking pieces of news, important pieces of news, and we also have a great article from American Spectator, which I'll provide a link to, and you can check that out, but I'm going to talk about that some. And once again, it's one of these days where I probably got more than I can get to, but I'll give it my best shot. So let's go. Well, there was a fire last night at Trump Tower. It was a 3-alarm fire. There is one person dead. Probably just an accident, I would think, but keep in mind Trump and his extended family actually live on the 66th, 67th, and 68th floors of Trump Tower. So a fire last night at Trump Tower, 3-alarm fire, one dead. I guess we'll learn more after we see the report and see what the fire inspectors think caused that fire. Well, the Gateway Pundit, and this is good news. They have written a story there about the 99-page FISA court document. This story by Jim Hoft. Now, you know, anyone who follows Conservative Treehouse has known about the 99-page FISA court document for about, 5 months now. The document was originally went online back in, I think, August of 2016, and it was there online for a while. Conservative Treehouse at some point discovered it, and they provided a link, which is a link to the PDF file. It is a redacted. It is redacted pretty heavily, but you can still get a lot of information out of the 99-page FISA court document. And what's cool about this is that I've been talking about it. I think I've heard Joe DeGeneva mention it a time or two, but for the most part, as you know, if you watch my TowerGate videos, for the longest time, I've been saying that probably the biggest bombshells of everything, including page and Strzok text, including what we know about Comey, including everything else that we're learning. And we've had some big bombshells. In my mind, there has been no bigger bombshell than the 99-page FISA court document written by Judge Collier, because of what it tells us. Not only does it tell us how early this intelligence operation began, but it tells us exactly this lays out some real crimes. So let's take a look at this, but keep in mind, DeGeneva is talking about it. I've been talking about it for, like I said, about 5 months now. A lot of other people talking about it, but it never cracked into the mainstream news. You didn't hear Hannity or Limbaugh. You don't hear any of the Levin. You don't hear any of these people talking about the 99-page FISA court document. But I'm hoping now that this story has made it into the Gateway Pundit, which is a fairly mainstream site that a lot of conservatives go to, and people like Limbaugh, Hannity, people like that. Their producers look at these sites and get stories from there. So I'm thinking now that we're getting very close to having the 99-page FISA court document, and what's the revelations in that are now going to finally find their way into the mainstream of the public conversation. And let's just refresh our memory, if we can, on the 99-page FISA court document, which was written by the senior justice at the FISA court, Judge Collier, a female. And it states in the two major crimes that we learned about in this 99-page FISA court document is that now this is the wording from the 99-page FISA court document. This is not my wording. This is not the Gateway Pundit wording. This is exactly the wording used in the 99-page FISA court document. It states that James Clapper's NSA had institutional lack of candor. The report shows widespread FISA abuse. Obama, his NSA, FBI and DOJ performed searches on Americans, violating their Fourth Amendment rights. 85% of the Section 4 and Section 705B FISA searches were non-compliant and therefore criminal. The FBI also was providing direct access to the NSA database, who had no legal cause or claim to the information. This is also a crime, and we're talking specifically about, even though it was redacted, we know who those some of those contractors were. It says contractors, so we can assume certainly one of them was Confusion GPS, the other we believe is CrowdStrike, but it appears that there could be more than two. And this is laid out in the FISA court document. They're saying that the FBI allowed access to third parties who had no legal cause or claim to the information. A crime. Of course, we know that Mike Rogers was the one that initially identified the FISA abuse when he ordered a review of these FISA searches, an audit through his officer below him who does the auditing. So the audit, he say, I want to audit of all these searches. Tell me what you find. And what they found was exactly that about 85% of those searches were illegal. This, of course, led to Rogers shutting down the program. First, he went to the FISA court and advised them of the problems. That's what led to the 99-page FISA court document that we're looking at now. And then, of course, at some point, we believe in somewhere around February or March of 2016, Mike Rogers just shut the program down completely. And, of course, it was him shutting down that program completely in the spring of 2016 that caused Mary Jacoby to go pay a visit to the White House. And then a week later, Mark Colias, on the working for the Right Reverend Clinton, hires Fusion GPS to create the dossier, which would eventually lead to the information to get the FISA warrant to continue the searches, because Mike Rogers shut the program down. So they had to find another way to continue getting these searches and doing these searches. So that's what we really learned from the 99-page FISA court document. It's bombshell information. It is criminal activity, and allowing third-party contractors access to the NSA database, that should cause them to completely, and maybe this is why we're not hearing about it. They don't want to talk about it because they just passed recently, a couple of months ago, at the end of the year, the first of the year actually, they passed authorization for the FISA process to continue. And they knew about this before that. That's probably why they haven't wanted to talk about it. But you can't suppress something like this. It is eventually going to find its way into the mainstream media. And that's what's happening now. So that's very good news, because this opens up an entire new corridor. And again, it takes you down toward the John Brennan direction of things in CIA. Another interesting news story that's happening now is a guy named John Cox. Some of you in California are probably familiar with him. He's a Republican, and he's running for the governor of California this November. He is gaining momentum. And Republicans need to start fighting for California. They really need to put a lot of effort in California. It's critical in the 2018 elections because you have like 53 seats out there in California, something like that. 22 or 23 of them are Republicans, and they need to battle and hold those seats. First, to make sure that they hold on to Congress and don't lose the majority in the House, but most important because they need to go out and start fighting in California. There are a lot of Republicans in California. And again, I remember when California was a red state. Nixon carried California twice. Reagan carried California twice. California is ripe for the picking. A lot of people there are fed up. We can expect that if they'll have a good candidate, and it appears that Mr. Cox is a pretty good candidate, and the Republican Party will actually go out there and fight, they could actually make a contest, because things are not getting any better in California. By November, they'll be worse. It's time to fight for California. It's an opportunity in the making. Let's not overlook it, Republican Party. It's there for the taking. More bad news for Uncle Bob, the executioner Mueller. His star witness, who we've already talked about before, and in his previous dealings, we are now learning about even more incredible crimes. This was supposed to be Mueller's star witness, of course, who's just been questioned, but now who's left the country since all this has become public. Mueller, Uncle Bob's star witness, has been outed again. This time we're learning that in 1991, in a customs search, officials found sex videos of boys, some as young as age 13. George Nader, who was a political advisor to the UAE, was also accused of being in possession of child porn in 1985. In 2002, Nader was convicted again in the Czech Republic of 10 counts of sexually abusing minors. This is a guy that Uncle Bob wants to use as a witness in Trump-Russia collusion, when this animal should be in jail. He shouldn't have been giving testimony to Mueller. Mueller should have been charging him with crimes. I'm sure they could have gotten a search warrant, went back to his hotel, and probably found some kiddie porn. Or kids, actual kids. Who knows? This guy's a freak. He's a nut. He's a pervert. And Mueller should have been arresting him, not using him as a witness. What kind of a freak show, three-ring circus is he running? For those of you who are on Twitter, I don't do Twitter, but if you're on Twitter, here's a good hashtag for you if someone doesn't already have it. Shut it down. Shut it down. Loretta Lynch will be going on NBC News to go on the record about the secret tarmac meeting, and will also talk about James Comey, the dishonorable former CIA director, fired by Trump justly because of the crimes he committed, the lies he's told under oath. He should also be in jail right now, too. And I think he will be eventually. On Monday, it appears April 9th, Monday, Loretta Lynch will be going on NBC News to set the record straight. Oh, yeah? Do you think that she'll lie? Hell yeah, she's going to lie. She's going to lie about everything. So who is putting her up to this? Oh, her lawyers are. What is she trying to do? Oh, she's going to send a message to anyone who might try to throw her under the bus. That's basically what she's going to do. And why? Well, because she knows that soon the little birds are going to start chirping. And she wants them, little birdies, to know that she too can hum a few tunes. Extortion and intimidation. That is the game plan for Loretta Lynch. Like McCabe and Comey, there is conflict over liability for the criminal activity that took place. Now Lynch and Comey are also in play. Sally Yates must feel like a pinball right now. Where does silly Sally go at this point? Who is she going to scapegoat? Couldn't be Priestap. He's already turned and is working with Horowitz. The swamp is turning into quicksand for some of these swamp creatures. And there's some very, very nasty creatures, and they're going down in the quicksand, known as the DC swamp. Actually, it's more like, it's worse than a swamp. A swamp actually has some redeeming qualities. This is more like a sewer. It's more like a sewer where raw sewage is pumped in, and God knows what can exist in that environment. You got to be pretty nasty to exist in that kind of polluted filth. I think you know what type of creatures we're talking about here. The kind that would pull off a deep state coup. So expect Loretta Lynch to go out there and lie her ass off about everything. She's not going to tell the truth about the tarmac meeting. She's not going to tell the truth about Comey. She's going out there because her lawyers are letting her know that the shit is getting ready to hit the fan, and that everybody's out there staking their positions, and that she better go out there and send a few messages without implicating herself in any crimes. It's very tricky business, but she's going on very friendly network where she will probably write the questions herself and study the answers with her attorneys. Every word will be carefully scripted, so that it accomplishes the mission, and that is to send the message to anyone who might want to do a little singing, that she can do a little singing too. Extortion and intimidation will be the call of order for that particular interview by Loretta Should Be Lynched. The dishonorable James Comey, meanwhile, is also taking up his defense in the public media. Comey will have to be very careful. He will only go to a liberal media outlet. You can bet on that. And he will only agree to an interview if the questions have been vetted by his lawyers. He, too, will be coached in his answers and will try not to incriminate himself while sending his own message to Lynch, McCabe, Priestap, Yates, and Obama. Comey's book tour will commence in about 2 weeks. Tickets to Comey's canned speeches will be $1,000 per ticket. Comey better be careful. He could incriminate himself or put himself into a perjury trap. He already has made contradictions under oath. 4, my last count. And now he is at odds with Andy McCabe over how much he knew or whether he knew about McCabe's directing Lisa Page and Michael Corton to leak that story to the Wall Street Journal. McCabe says Comey knew all about it and he can prove it. Comey says, bullshit. Now, as I mentioned, the American Spectator has written a great article. It's George Neumeyer. And, we're talking American Spectator is a fairly mainstream, obviously to the right. It's a conservative, libertarian type website. But you got like Andrew McCarthy. Very people come out of the good journalists, professional journalists. They, do real journalism, which means they actually cite real sources. They draw real conclusions, and they focus on telling as close to possible the facts surrounding the story they're talking about. They actually do some journalism over there at the American Spectator. But what's new about this is we are seeing a shift in the last couple of days. We had the article by Elizabeth Voss. We have this article by Lee Stranahan that I'll be talking about probably tomorrow. Just won't have time to get to it today. But you are seeing a shift now. More people starting to realize that if you look at this thing again, as we continue to have to look at it over and over again as we move forward and get new information, we have to start looking at it in a different light. But it strikes me that if those of you who can go all the way back to the very beginning of TowerGate, you'll know that in the very first couple of days of doing TowerGate videos, I said 2 characters really jumped out at me. I said, and this is long before we even knew that Hillary paid for the dossier or anything like that. I said that looks like a rotten Reverend Clinton and a Clinton type operation. The whole surveillance on Trump Tower and this type of thing looked to me like a Clinton operation. But Hillary Clinton couldn't have set all that into motion. She's not in the government anymore. She would have needed someone to do that bidding for her. And I said way back then that John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, that John Brennan would most likely be the type of person who could set these things in motion. He was head of the CIA, and we all know that he was a hardcore pro-Hillary supporter and a close friend of the Clintons and John McCain, Senator Magoo. John Brennan was, of course, his office, they say, looked like a Hillary campaign office. Hillary for President campaign mugs, posters, all sorts of paraphernalia of Hillary 2016, and he encouraged others there around him where he worked to also put up their Hillary 2016 paraphernalia along in the offices and around the water cooler and anywhere else. It was Hillary 2016 all day at the CIA, there where John Brennan was. But despite... let me go back to the top here. So anyway, this story by the American Spectator, really what it does, along with the last couple articles we've seen the last few days, shows that there's a shift into people thinking, maybe there's a lot more to learn about the role that the British government, the UK, had in this whole affair. And John Brennan would have been the person who would have directed with that, because you're talking foreign. you're not talking domestic. It's FBI has some involvement, but this looks a lot more like an intelligence operation, a Hall of Mirrors operation being run out of the CIA. And we know that Brennan met with the head of GCHQ back in the summer of 2016 to discuss the findings from the surveillance that was being done by GCHQ, and that was being done on behalf of Brennan. But we also had a story back a couple of months ago that Obama and Rice were the ones who ordered the original surveillance, and we learned that from a Bill Still video. Whether or not that document he showed has actually been proven to be true, or whether that story is true, I don't know. But it's still out there, kind of hanging in the breeze there. It's never been totally 100% confirmed by any other sources I can find. But it's still out there. But we do know for a fact that Brennan met with the head of GCHQ, who came here to brief Brennan in the summer of 2016 on their findings from the surveillance they've been conducting. Whether they were doing it on behalf of Brennan or on behalf of Obama and Rice is still yet to be determined. But we know for sure that they were sharing the information with Brennan. So, the FBI is now refusing to show Nunes the EC, the electronic document that essentially better exist. And this document should show what triggered the probe into the Trump campaign. Why is the FBI hiding this document? Well, is it because it contains classified information, secret intelligence? No, absolutely not. It's because it will expose the embarrassingly political, partisan ongoings of its spying on Trump and likely expose crimes, big ones. That's why they do not want to produce the EC for Devin Nunes. Because either A, they do not have it, it doesn't exist, or B, because it exposes the insurance policy, the frame-up, whatever you want to call it. But eventually, despite the stonewalling and cock-blocking, the FBI will have to admit to its crimes. Eventually, the truth will come out that through incompetence or criminal compliance, the FBI succumbed to a CIA Hall of Mirrors operation run by John Brennan, the most virulent Hillary partisan imaginable. We also know that Brennan told Bloomberg News in August of 2016, that he wanted to remain head of CIA under the rotten Reverend Clinton. Brennan used the State Department, along with the rotten Reverend Clinton, to pressure the FBI into starting the probe. The Trump hater and the number 2 counterintelligence person there, Peter Benstrokinus, then formally opened the probe, which was actually a counterintelligence operation on Trump and his campaign. Steele, of course, Christopher Steele, was set up to launder the smear campaign materials, disguised as raw intelligence, but was actually garbage intel provided to Brennan by the British GCHQ, who was doing Brennan's dirty work. An intelligence laundering operation. That's a term that I've been saying for weeks and weeks now, and I think it's eventually going to catch on, because that's what it was. An intelligence laundering operation. Christopher Steele was the launderer, and Confusion GPS was their laundromat. Fusion GPS, of course, has deep ties to the CIA. Essentially, Confusion GPS served as a laundromat with the intel coming in and the intel going out. They were just a turnstile. And the rotten Reverend Clinton was paying for it all. The rotten Reverend figured out how to purchase a FISA warrant. The rotten Reverend did it all with a little help from her friend, her commie Muslim convert friend, Mr. Potato Head himself, John Brennan. And why is Brennan lashing out so fragrantly and irresponsibly at Trump? It's because he is an animal that knows he's about to be put into a cage. And who does Brennan follow on Twitter? He follows Comey, Samantha Power, Sally Yates, and Susan Rice. Why? Well, it's because they are the ones who could turn on him and throw him under the bus to save their criminal behinds. There is no loyalty in the swamp, and certainly not in the sewer. Oh, but Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, isn't done. The next thing he did was he publicized the Trump-Russia hoax by briefing Harry Reid, not his boss. And oh, by the way, they just began looking into that again now. Nunes's committee is now looking into that little deal with John Brennan, briefing Harry Reid. Why would he brief Harry Reid? Harry Reid's not his boss. CIA director reports to the president. Why would he go to a Democratic member of Congress who was not even on one of the Gang of Eight intelligence committees or any of the intelligence committees? Why Harry Reid? Well, he did it because he knew that Harry Reid would leak it to the press, which was the original point. In fact, Brennan probably encouraged him to do it. Oh, and who ran Harry Reid's super PAC in 2016? Mark Elias of Perkins Coie, Hillary's lawyer. He's the guy who also hired Confusion GPS and CrowdStrike. And he represents the DNC. He also represents John Podesta, who he sat right next to during Podesta's congressional hearing, where Podesta stated that he knew nothing about the dossier until BuzzFeed published it. Welcome to Mr. Potato Head's Wall of Mirrors. Hall of Mirrors. Could be a wall of mirrors, but it's definitely a hall of mirrors. Hall of Mirrors is simply a type of operation that the CIA runs all the time, where you get so many different things going, and that it confuses the hell out of anyone who's trying to figure out what's going on, because you have so many different things going. It's called the Hall of Mirrors technique. It's a mass confusion chaos operation. But pretty soon, the left-wing media will be forced to cover the real 2016 story about how the Obama administration and the rotten Reverend Clinton orchestrated a cover-up of her crimes and then launched a counterintelligence operation on Trump to frame him for colluding with Russia, when in fact it was she, the rotten Reverend, and Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, themselves colluding with Brits and blaming it on the Russians. Soon, the media will turn when they have no choice, and they will break out the long knives. Well, that's where we are. You know, I'm sitting back thinking the other day, what if Hillary would have won? Because when you look at the behavior of Brennan, Comey, McCabe, and all these characters, the things that they were doing were things that you would do if you expected the rotten Reverend was going to win. They wanted two major things. Number one, they wanted to make sure that they weren't people who had any role to play in going after Clinton or even participating in anything investigating her. And in fact, they needed to make sure that they were part of the plan to exonerate her, to get her cleared of her crimes. Why? It's a good career move. Do you want the rotten Reverend pissed at you? You know, if she found out you were one of the people who was trying to gun her down, day one, you would be gone. And these people wanted to protect their careers, and they probably legitimately hated Trump. John Brennan told Bloomberg that he wanted to remain the director of the CIA under Hillary. Now imagine if Hillary wins and she's putting together her cabinet and she brings in Comey. Says, well, James, I've been giving it some thought. I've decided I'm going to offer the FBI director job to someone else. Well, the dishonorable James Comey with a major God complex would probably look at Hillary and say, well, you know, Hillary, that would be a good choice except for one thing. I want to remain the FBI director. And you see, I've done a lot of things for you. And I've also still got a lot of information right up here. I've also got some documents that if they were to find their way into the public media, it could cause you some problems. She might look at him and go, well, you know, James, you opened up that investigation on me a week before the election, reopened the investigation, and probably might have cost me the election. In which Comey would simply say, well, you know, Reverend, we sat on it for 30 days. We didn't want to come out with it. We were forced because other people found out that it existed and we had no choice. But as you saw, I came out with it. I got it out there, and in 48 hours, I exonerated you again. Gave you the all clear signal. It's the best I could do. By the way, I have a lot of documents that might interest a lot of people in the media, and I sure would like to remain the FBI director. Then, of course, you've got McCabe, and you've got all these other people who want to keep their jobs or move somewhere else in the administration, and they all have the same thing going on. They have got the goods on the rotten reverend. They just didn't drop them on her. But they've got them, and they want career advancement, you might say, upward mobility under the rotten reverend. So there would have been a lot of strange dynamics in play had the rotten reverend won the election. She would have owed a lot of the people who she probably would have been poised to get rid of. Clapper and Brennan and all these guys all would have had Hillary by the scrotum. They likely would have been able to, blackmail her or anything else because they had so much information on her that they simply hid. But at any time, any of them could start leaking documents to the media about her crimes. So she would have had a lot of problems had she won the election with all those people who had to commit crimes on her behalf, and who, of course, wanted to. But, if she tried to screw them, tried to replace them with other people who maybe she had promised jobs to because of things they did, then, look at everybody who had the goods on the rotten reverend. Everybody. Obama, Lynch, Rice, Yates, Powers, Rhodes, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Orr, all these people, every one of them, they all had the goods on the rotten Reverend Clinton. They know that she was exonerated. They know she was part of this frame-up that could cause her a lot of problems. They had serious leverage over her. Things could have been very interesting even if she would have won. Even if she would have won, I'm not sure she would have escaped. I'm not sure all the stuff we're learning about now wouldn't have even come out, even if she were president. Just because of all the people she would have to knife in the pack. And their response to that. It's all very interesting to contemplate. Fortunately, that's not our reality. Thank God that we don't have the rotten reverend. But had she won, she still would have had some very strange things to deal with, some very difficult things to deal with all those people who, at the time that they were doing all these things, were doing them with the belief that Hillary, when John Brennan's doing all this, he's thinking it's because Hillary's going to win, and he wants to, be able to go to the rotten reverend and tell her how he did all this to deliver the presidency to her. Comey wanted to be able to do that. Lynch wanted to be able to do that. I think that that meeting on the tarmac probably had something to do with Clinton collaborating or working with Lynch to maybe figure out how to get the FISA warrants going again because they've been shut down. Remember, they talked for 40 minutes. They probably covered several subjects. I wouldn't doubt, but what Clinton was there to deliver a message to Lynch that Hillary was going to give her a Supreme Court nomination or some position, I don't know what they would give her that's higher than that she was qualified for, above Attorney General, but I would think a Supreme Court position or something like that. If Clinton said, hey, if you can get control of this investigation, kill this investigation, take care of things for Hillary, she's going to put you on the Supreme Court. I wouldn't doubt in the least that took place in that conversation. Something happened there, and it wasn't golf and Brexit and grandchildren. I can assure you of that. But there's a lot of interesting things to contemplate. Of course, now we can see a lot of shift in the last couple days. More stories coming out. People now paying attention to the 99-page FISA court document. People paying attention now to how much John Brennan and the CIA were involved in this, all the way back to the very beginning. Back in 2015, before even the investigation through the FBI began in summer 2016. The CIA was involved back in the late fall of 2015. And we can see the role. People now are focusing on all the UK and British individuals who were involved, and we went through that list 2 days ago. So a lot of things are shifting underneath our feet. Things are getting wild. Hang in there. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. Bye.